The finals by Embark Studios launched recently in a soft launch during the Game Awards, and it's kind of blown up already, in less than 24 hours, reaching a peak of 200,000 plus players on Steam alone, and a few days later almost hitting that 250,000 player count, again, only on Steam. So it's pretty evident that the finals continues that hype that it brought with its initial closed sessions and open beta sessions. And for those who missed our initial review a few months back during the closed gameplay sessions, the finals is a free-to-play first-person shooter from Embark Studios, a team of former Battlefield devs for PC, PlayStation 5, and the newest generation of Xbox and Series X and S. Now, I bring up the backstory of the studio for the simple reason that destruction is this game's identity as much as that team-based gameplay loop. Just about everything is destructible, which makes the world evolution incredibly interesting as matches progress, and every single game is a little different than the last. The game is a more simple class/hero-based game with a 3-class system, a light, medium, and heavy class, all of which having increasing increments of health as you go along that sort of scale, but decreasing increments of movement speeds respectively. So your light class is the weakest and has the least amount of health, but is faster than all the others. Heavy is the opposite. Most health and can tank shots, but is a slow class. It can be very hard to maneuver around that map fast and get from one point to the other in a manner that could save the game. Each match, you have a special ability, weapon, and a few gadgets to cycle in and out of, depending on what class you have, and there's a few different maps to play on. While there's only a handful, all have variable environments, meaning night and day cycles, sometimes right in the middle of all of those, with varying weather effects of clear nights, foggy aesthetic, and other things alike that change the gameplay loop overall. If you were to jump into the game right now, you'd have the ability to play on 2 different game modes, Quick Cache and Bank It. Quick Cache was kind of the base default mode that was there from the beginning and the sort of general basis for the entire gameplay loop as a whole, where you have to open a vault once it's revealed, then take it to a deposit station to cash out. The entire cash out process is something that the entire map is aware of, so once you start it, everybody can gun for that, and it takes some time to do, so you have to defend that and fight like hell. Honestly, it's oftentimes easier to swoop in and just steal the deposit. Once you end up clearing out the teams there, you can end up holding to interact and you just end up stealing that deposit, where whoever is making that progress towards it, that progress bar doesn't reset or anything, but instead, from there on out, it's yours until somebody else steals it back. But you have to make sure you have full control of the area if you're attempting this, because it does take a bit of time to do. So this game mode is again the core gameplay basis of the entire game itself. Depositing and banking is that identity of that sort of gameplay loop. Bank It is essentially grind from COD for those of you guys that are looking for something to jump over with as a reference point, where you eliminate players and then they drop coins, where you have to then collect those and deposit them. You have the ability to collect multiple in a single life, so if you kill somebody who was just collecting like crazy and didn't deposit anything, you could come out of there with a hefty number of coins to deposit for yourself. Each of those coins being a denomination of cash, where the max is 40,000 you have to race to, again, against a couple of other teams. There are other things you can pick up that are like bonus coins you can open up after a short animation and unlock sort of window, but all in all, you have to end up killing players, taking those coins and depositing them. So those are your 2 gameplay modes here with this, but that's the sort of basis for the game overall. What's new with Season 1 though? What's new with the launch compared to what we saw in the beta perhaps? Well, of course, it is the full launch of the game now, so it is going to be something that Season 1, now that we're in and beyond, we'll see more and more things progressively introduced as that sort of live service continues. But based off their patch notes, they detailed quite a few things here where you have new content in the way of reload and inspect animations, emotes, gestures, pets, sounds, watches, and other things like that. You now have mastery levels in ways that you can progress weapons, whereas it was just kind of pick up and use in the beta. So you now have the ability to end up progressing through 6 mastery levels per weapon, 6 mastery levels per gadget, and 5 levels per ability. There's a brand new Season 1 Battle Pass that comes along with everything here, 96 total rewards, 29 can be earned for free, and the rest in the premium paid Battle Pass here with that. That will last the entirety of the season. And the other big thing comes now to the new map of Las Vegas, where when you have a game that is based on a sort of game show, if you don't know the backstory of the game itself, contestants, as you're called, end up vying for that top spot, where if you look outside of the world, you'll see a ring of like people that are supposed to be watching. So it's like a futuristic mini battle royale per se, but this new map is something that ends up playing pretty well. It's the smallest of the maps, if I'm not mistaken, here on offer, so it plays pretty well, fast action, high pace, and we also see new map variants alongside all of this. They did detail that there is going to be a new alien invasion live event in game. There are things that happen that are modifiers to the game, like mega damage is one that happens where bullets do more damage at that point. There's a low gravity event that happens. So the new event, the alien invasion, playing a couple of hours here. I didn't quite get to see it, but they said that it's something that it's so crazy you have to see it to believe it. Now, there were a handful of changes from the beta to where we are in launch, but I really don't want to make this like a patch notes video. I want to just talk about the game overall. And for that, the general feel and gameplay, it's just fun. It's brilliant chaos. I had a blast playing this again. I missed the last open beta play session because it was either like right in the middle of the multiplayer beta for Modern Warfare 3, where it was just content heavy and we were just focused on that, or it was like something where I was traveling. I don't remember the exact details, but I just know that I wasn't able to make the last one. So having some time off and not having been able to play for a couple of months, it's definitely been fun to jump back into everything again. The gunplay felt fluid, though I will say everything in this game is pretty tanky. You have to hit shots. It's definitely not something where you can get multiple kills or even wipe a squad with one magazine, just simply because the variability in health, the damage profiles of weapons, and of course the biggest thing is that there's not really any extended mags for anything. So you don't have a whole ton of ammo. Like I think the SCAR equivalent in this game ends up having 20 rounds or something like that to work with, which is not gonna work if you're trying to go against a heavy or something like that. The animations are just, oh, they're pristine, chef's kiss. And aesthetically, I love the game. It's vibrant colors, it's interesting level design. It's fun to look at, I think. Maybe you guys disagree and that's entirely fine, but that's something that for me, I just love the aesthetic of this game overall. The only thing that I felt was like kind of out of the ordinary was the movement. But devs did confirm that no changes were made on their end from beta to launch. With so many feeling that, I guess, placebo effect, they said they were looking into why the perception of movement was wrong. I think there's two different sort of explanations here for why that could be. Firstly, the FOV settings were all reset if you played the beta. It's a different application. It's not the playtest EXE, it's the actual launch build of the finals. So it doesn't save those settings. You have to go in and redo a lot of your stuff. And that's something that, well, it's very possible you didn't do the FOV, and the perception changes whenever you have a tighter FOV, that more tight and narrow viewpoint of what you're looking at. That's going to always feel like you're going slower. So if you end up expanding that FOV, it's going to feel like you're going faster as well. Also, for me personally, the second thing is whenever I was coming over from COD, I think it was just because this past year was so sluggish. I mean, if you look at the movement from what we have now in Modern Warfare 3 to what we had in Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 is no doubt way faster than Modern Warfare 2. So when you go from something that this game felt fast by comparison to Modern Warfare 2, it's now like in that middle ground between Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, I think, in terms of that movement. So for me, it just feels slower because of that. But maybe that's just me. Again, I'm probably not the only one who thought it felt slow, and I'm sure a lot of people that have played this from the beta also may not have been COD gamers. So that might just be a more individualized explanation. But anyways, for an overall review, I definitely think you should check it out. It's a free-to-play game, costs you nothing other than just a couple of hours of your time to try the game out and see how you like it. But my biggest thing, and when I look at this in terms of long-term, is does it have the replayability? That's something that I always look at in games anymore. And honestly, I think first and foremost, this is at the least going to be a cult hit, meaning that even if it doesn't go supersonic in terms of being the game of the year or something like that in the FPS genre, I absolutely think that the community that's already established for this, they'll love it and they'll play it for a long time. I do think that this is one of those games that's very niche and has the potential to kind of make its own market and then control that market. Again, you're playing a lot of sort of team-based gameplay elements. You're doing this more so as a sort of competitive game mode. Even in pubs, they do have a ranked, yes, but even in pubs, it's something that it's just like, you want to win. That's the whole objective of it. There's not anything that really is an incentive to just not play the objective and just go for camos or something like that. Kind of like Counter-Strike, the very basis of the game is competitive in nature. It's a very straightforward and linear gameplay loop here at this, and you know what you're going to do from the very beginning. My only concerns with this come down to a couple of things. Firstly, right now, there's only 2 modes. Now, granted, there are a decent number of things to do in terms of ranking up all your weapons, unlocking weapons, unlocking gadgets, you have your battle pass, but after you do all that kind of stuff, after you put in a ton of hours, whenever you end up maxing stuff out, will it still be entertaining with just those 2 modes? That could be something that is very subjective. Maybe some people absolutely love it still after all of that. Maybe some get bored. I doubt there'll only be 2 modes forever, but I'd be curious to see what happens if they do introduce more and more modes, because the sort of basis of the deposit style gameplay loop may run thin if you have too many modes of the same thing. Like, how many things can you think of that you do the same end goal at that point, but in different variations? I just feel like that might be creatively tough to do, I guess. I don't know how to really word that in terms of my thoughts, but the other thing is player count. I think that when you come across a max players of 12 in a game, that being in the banquet mode as a 3v3 3v3v3, where there's 12 players and quick cash is only 3v3v3 is 9 players. The maps, I think, in terms of sizing, could absolutely use with maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 more teams in all of that. Get it to be absolute utter chaos. And if you were to do a more traditional FPS style genre of gameplay modes beyond just bank it and of course the quick cash game modes as well, you obviously would very much so benefit from having more players like that. Even if you just did like a regular team deathmatch style game mode, not even saying to copy like the big game modes of like domination or conquest from Battlefield or COD or search and destroy or anything like that, but even if you just introduce things that aren't necessarily as objective based, having more players, I think, could be absolutely supported and use some of that open space that is not really going to be used in a lot of those game modes on these maps, because they are very big maps to a degree. The next thing is the respawn timers that kind of have my concern a bit. You have 20 seconds on a respawn, and sure, that forces team play and revives to be on the front of your mind, but if you get wiped, that's a hefty respawn delay. Not to mention, you'll spawn across the map, so that's like a free 40 seconds or so that it will take to get back into the action, and a free 40 seconds that enemies will be having to progress that cash out if you're ending up playing that quick cash game mode. So it's something that keeps you out of the action for a little too long, in my opinion. Of course, that's something that may be evaluated here in the future, having gone through all the different beta playtesting and all that. Maybe it's something that they've kind of come to that conclusion that that is still the sweet spot, but personally for me, it just feels like you're out of the action a little too much. But honestly, when I look at what I played with in the finals, closed sessions a couple of months ago, and what I played with earlier grinding it out, those are really the only things that I think of that I have any concerns on. Otherwise, it's a very fun mode. Again, it's a niche game. It's something that may not be for everybody, but if it is for you, I think you'll absolutely love this thing. Not to mention all the other cool stuff like the cosmetics, the camos to grind out. Some stuff is sure paid, and that'll be something introduced. That's just the nature of free-to-play beast at this point. I mean, you have to supplement income somewhere to keep the studio lights on to pay people. So that's something that is going to see, of course, progressive rollout of even more cosmetics. But I mean, that's an afterthought for me. I do think there are some really cool camos to grind out for each of the weapons that I'm definitely going to be doing, but overall, I really did enjoy the gameplay here, being able to jump back into it, now having it be in full launch. That's awesome. You don't have to wait anymore. You can jump in and play this whenever you want. So to see this thing jump to 200,000 plus players on launch just on Steam, again, not even taking into account PlayStation or Xbox numbers, that's awesome to see. I do think this was a very fun game to play around with. I'm excited to see what the future holds for it, and I'm happy for the team at Embark for finally getting to launch this thing. I know it's been a long time coming, and it's been a lot of play sessions, a lot of time since the announcement that it was made that it would be coming out. It's cool to finally see it happen. So anyways, that's where we're at. That's the finals, and definitely let me know your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things the finals, perhaps if you want to see more finals content, and of course, other FPS stuff here upcoming. But anyways, that's what we're gonna call it. So thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.